Hey everybody, Jimmy Kukulski here from ELS. Just going to do a quick fuel filtration video, specifically diesel fuels, diesel filtration on heavy duty equipment, diesel trucks. I had saw a post about changing your fuel filters. I actually did a video on my 6.7 Power Stroke a while back and got some pushback saying Ford OEM spec is 30,000 miles. And so I'm going to go through and try to generalize a couple of the filtration types of systems out there, but why you want to change the fuel filters, maybe on a little more active basis, and definitely don't forget about them. Really, don't let them go on diesel filtration. I work on everything from natural gas turbines, large diesel power plants, $10 million engines and packages. Filtration, contamination, all do the same thing. They wreck parts. So let's get into this, and hopefully Natiri here doesn't get too loud with her ball chewing. So, and in your basic filtration or diesel fuel pathway to the injectors, you got your tank, you got a pump, you got your primary filter, maybe a secondary filter. So this would be looser, higher micron, maybe nominal, not absolute. Has your water separator and everything in it, and then you got more of a absolute filtration. You may have these right next to each other. You might have like in a 6.7 Power Stroke or some of the other light duty diesel trucks, you'll have your primary underneath the frame and the secondary or the tighter filtration up in the engine bay. It really doesn't matter where they are or how they act. The principles are the same, okay? And then you have your high pressure fuel pump, your injection pump, your injectors, so on your 3406s and stuff like that, all your on the road larger diesel, heavy duty diesel engines, the fuel could go right to the injectors and your cams fire the injectors that way. But anyway, the basic principle is that you've got a pump, typically, unless you're a Duramax and they run under vacuum for whatever reason, a filter, a secondary, and then it goes into your injector. Now, what your pump is doing is that it is pressurizing and sending fluid at a certain pressure, let's say your P, and it's going through your primary filter. Now, what happens when it does that is the pressure has a delta, okay? So basically, you've got a delta, and what that delta is your pressure beforehand, pre, and pressure after, okay? And there is a difference between that. And it sometimes, depending on where your regulator is, so you could have a regulator here, 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 inside this filter. Your pressure differential is very important. When the filter starts to be used, now the particles that are in this filter are not supposed to be large, right? Your fuel is filtered as it goes into your tank, so you don't have boulder-sized particles in this thing. What they're looking to take out is 25, 10, 15 micron, that size and larger, before it gets to the secondary filter. And there's a reason for that. First of all, it takes some of the duty cycle off your secondary filter. The other thing is that large particles won't actually get trapped in the filter. They'll settle out into the water separator, which is on the bottom, and you drain it out, and you drain some of those larger particles out. But the key factor here to keep in mind is that you have a filter and you have a differential pressure inside that over that filter media. Now, as the filter gets older and the larger particles that don't settle out fall off the filter, they stay in this, and they're much smaller than your eyes can see, okay? What the particle sizes that we're really concerned about mainly are half micron to 8 to 10 micron. And the reason why is that's your film barrier between the two parts. In a lubricated system, a tribiological system, you have one part and a second part. And in between those two parts is your lubricant. In this case, it's diesel, and that keeps the two parts separated. The particles that are in there cause wear between those two. I have other videos that go deeper into this. I don't want to explain it too much, but contamination is bad, okay? So let's say you get those little tiny particles start plugging up this filter. This differential pressure goes up. Now, there's a couple reasons. Obviously, you're plugging it. Pressure over here is higher. Pressure over here is lower. What happens when you change pressure or change flow to a fluid, doesn't matter what fluid it is, it can and typically does cause what's called cavitation. Cavitation can do certain things, but you're basically creating air or you're creating vapor inside the fluid itself. So, the longer that this filter is here, the higher the cavitation goes up. Now, a lot of people think that the fuel just goes through here, gets filtered once, and then that's it. It's not necessarily true. there's a return to your tank, and it's either after your primary filter or after your secondary filter, up here between there and the high pressure filter and the injectors, okay? What that means is your fuel is always cycling through this filter. It doesn't stop. Now it's good and it's bad, all right? What happens, because that fuel is always going through here, it doesn't really necessarily matter what size this is. It is always, in some manifestation, going to be pulling out really small particles. They're going to get collected in that primary filter. It doesn't matter if it's 25 or 30 or 40 micron. Unless that thing's a straight up stainless steel mesh, it is going to, even then it will catch 1 and 2 and 3 and 8 micron particles. What that does is starts to plug it up, and it continues to raise that. So you have the cycle of this fuel always moving through this and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. Then you have your breather, either on your filler tank or whatever it is. That is, boom, bringing in more contamination. As the tank heats up and expands and contracts, it's breathing in and out to atmosphere. It's bringing in contamination, and this filter is always filtering the same fuel over and over and over and over and over again. Now, you go up here to the secondary filter where you have actually a lot tighter tolerances. This is exponentially more important than it is here. So depending on where your pressure regulator is and where it sends the fuel back, you could actually be super polishing your oil and trying to take out that contamination all at the same time. Now, how do I know this affects the running of the engine? I have used accelerometers on mobile devices inside artificial intelligence. I work in the asset management industry. I know a significant amount. I'm a category 2 vibration analyst. I know a lot about calculating velocities and acceleration and getting them through Fourier transforms, coming up with spectrums. That's something I do on a regular basis. So what did I do? I took the same equipment and I put it on a couple diesel trucks and I changed the filters. 5, 10, 15, 30,000 miles. I tested them over, same temperature, same fuel, same day, so that the tune wasn't augmented. Every single time I changed my filters, I had a lower velocity, a lower acceleration on my vibration meters in the truck. What that means is that the truck was running smoother. And the only thing we changed was the fuel filter. And even at 5,000 miles, we noticed that. Okay, and this happened over and over and over again. I think it probably did it 6 or 7 times. I've got videos of that out there as well if you want to see some of the more moderate testing. Some of the more advanced testing is pretty hard to understand and very difficult to video. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What tells me is that the cavitation levels are different, right? The fuel pressure is different. So keep in mind that your fuel filter is always fueling the same fuel over and over and over again. It's super cleaning it, which is good for your injectors. It's good for your high pressure fuel pump. It's good for everything. But it means that all of the cycle, all the load are on these filters and they never stop working. All right. So when somebody tells you 30, 40, 50,000 miles is okay for a fuel filter, specifically in a diesel engine, I call BS. Just change them a little more often, right? If you do your oil changes at 15,000 miles, do your fuel filter changes at 15,000 miles or 20 when you don't know what you're getting for fuel. And you're definitely always breathing in and out and getting contamination. So take care of your assets. These things cost money. My last diesel truck was really expensive. I don't think a $60 filter every 15,000 miles hurt me nearly as much as losing an engine or sitting on the side of the road, which has never happened to me. And I owned a 6.4, okay? That's like a thing all 6.4 owners get to do in their life is to sit on the side of the road. I didn't have to. And 300,000 miles. So take care of it. Change your filters. All right? Thanks. Have a great day.